Um, Daniel, did being an English language teacher inspire you to learn a second language yourself?
Yes, it absolutely did. I probably didn't even have a choice because my first professional teaching gig was teaching in South Korea. So I had to move to a new country, learn new culture, new language, new environment. So by me teaching English to those students, it was really difficult for me to kind of engage with them, to connect with them, to understand them, because they weren't fluent English speakers and I wasn't a fluent Korean speaker. So over time and throughout my 4 years there, I started to study more and more, and I was more and more motivated. And the harder they tried, the harder I wanted to try. So without a doubt, it definitely helped, because the most important thing I found now after 11 years of teaching is that it's really important to connect with your learners and find an instant connection. Because if you can do that and get them kind of to buy into what you want to do with them in terms of their goals and their motivations for learning English, then you can really hit the ground running and you can make a lot of progress with them. So yeah, without a doubt, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's really great that to really connect with your students, you have to learn a bit of their language. So that's
Mhm.
awesome. You're able to pick up a bit of Korean and be able to engage better with your students. And do you have a preference in teaching either adults or children in your classrooms? If so, why?
So again, when I was teaching before, I taught elementary school, I taught middle school, I taught high school. After a couple of years of kind of middle school and elementary school, I kind of figured, okay, I want to teach high school. So I spent a couple of years in the UK and in Korea teaching high school, and it was better, but teenagers are still teenagers, and I used to be a teenager, so I know I was a nightmare. So imagine that in your class multiplied by 30 or 40. So it was tough. It was a challenge. So kind of when I transitioned to online teaching, it was pretty much all adult learners, because highly motivated, generally pretty easy to get along with. They're focused. They know what they need to achieve or what they need to accomplish. So nowadays, 90% of my students are adults. I do have a couple of young learners that I teach, a couple of kind of reading type classes that I do. But that's only kind of as a favor to an old colleague. And I don't usually do that because I find young ones are a lot of fun, of course, as I'm sure you know, Sam, but they take up a lot of your time. They really are mentally can be quite, engaging, which means you'll be quite tired afterwards. And I found like 3 or 4 hours of teaching adults and then 3 or 4 hours of teaching kids. I'm really exhausted after teaching the kids, but the adults I can kind of manage. So I definitely find adult learners is my preference, but a little bit of younger learners sprinkled in there can make it fun and make the week go a little bit quicker. So yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. They're able to find out which group of students that you really connect with, and that really gives you expand your energy much better. And
Right.
just wondering of with the teenagers, how did you get them to be less rowdy or less, cooperate more in your class? What type of
Yeah.
fun lessons?
It's about having a lesson or a class that is kind of tailored to them with them in mind. So, if I imagine for a second, Sam, that you're my student and you really love sports or dance or music, well, then if I make a lesson around that topic, the student's going to be like, "Oh, Daniel actually listened to me. He actually knows what I like. This is great." So again, you take down those barriers and you can pitch it better. So you consider the student, if you're being a little bit if you're losing focus or being a bit rowdy, I might say, oh, I went to a lot of time and effort to do this for you guys because I know you really enjoy this or you're really interested in this. And wow, yeah, you're right. So again, it goes back to what I said earlier about building that connection, building that rapport, building that close trust within your class. And even on a one-to-one basis, really listening to your students and showing them that you care and showing them that you listen, that helps. And then I would say, don't be super serious in your delivery. So if I'm dealing with a 15 or 16-year-old student, again, I was their age. I know what it's like. I don't want to just sit and drill grammar for an hour or an hour and a half. I want to have a few minutes to maybe do an activity where I talk about something or create something or play a game or something like that. And again, if you build that in and you kind of have those little breaks within that, I think it's much more achievable and you get a lot more out of the classes.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. That's awesome that you're able to create these various lessons and assignments where the students, like the teenagers that you teach, are able to be relatable and engaged, and they really have a lot of fun, and you don't get too much conflict because you're teaching interests that they really are like a lot. And what is your motivation in teaching your students, Daniel?
The motivation in teaching my students. It sounds really cheesy to say this, but I decided I wanted to be a teacher in the first place because I worked kind of corporate jobs. I worked in companies when I was younger to get some experience. And I really hated the fact that I'd wake up in the morning and my goal, my purpose for that day was to wake up to make someone else money. I really don't like that. So I went into teaching because I feel like it's something where I can be myself. I don't have to change who I am. I can actually learn new skills and I can learn about different cultures, different languages, different countries, different communities, which I've done immensely now. I can connect with almost any student from any country now instantly, which is amazing. And
Wow.
the most important thing is that I want to make a difference. So, you know, being in Canada and working with mostly international students, they want to maybe start a business or they want to go to do a master's or a PhD, or they want to, achieve certain things in their life, maybe with their English or something like that. To be a part of that and to, talk to students 1 year, 2 years, 5 years later, and they said, thank you for that. You were a reason why I've now built my business, or you were the reason why I'm able now to settle permanently in the US or Canada, or you were the reason why I got to do a PhD and now I'm getting a well-paid job as a researcher. Then that is kind of the best kind of receipt and the best motivation that I get back, because I'm like, wow, I used my time and my skills to help someone improve their life and help someone get somewhere else they need to be. So maybe I played a 1% role in that, but it's still a role nonetheless. And that's what I enjoy most about teaching.
Wow, that is so profound and also very inspiring how you had these various experiences and how they shape you now and being just the best teacher and offering your gifts. And you feel just rewarded, just as the students feel when receiving your teaching, and they're expanding and doing wonderful things, building rapport with you afterwards. So that is phenomenal,
Yeah.
Daniel. And do do the majority of your students reside in one country, or are they spread out all over the world, thus across several time zones? Does
Yeah.
that pose any challenges for you?
Yes and no. So I actually checked this not that long ago. Throughout, since I've been teaching online, which is kind of 3.5, almost 4 years, I've taught students from more than 80 countries, 80. So yeah, it's a lot.
My
And I thought, I thought about it and I thought, wow, that's amazing. So to answer the first question, no, they're not just concentrated in one country. Now, when I was working my day job in universities, most of them were from, again, a range of countries. So I've never really had that experience. Even formal teaching settings that I've been in the UK, in Canada, in Korea. I guess in Korea they were pretty much all Korean, but in the UK, again, very diverse. Canada, very diverse. So I would say that no. But back to the online question, um, with the different students in different places, it can kind of create a bit of an issue with time. But generally, what I'll do with my time is there's kind of one chunk of the world that's around in the morning for me, and then there's one chunk of the world that's around in the afternoon for me. So I try not to stay up too late. I don't want to have like 15, 16-hour days. So it's kind of morning time for those students, generally younger students, and students in places like China, Korea, Japan. Those places, those students will I'll teach in the morning. I think even now I have students from Myanmar, Vietnam, like those countries. So they're all kind of concentrated in the morning block. And then when we get into the afternoon, it's more students who maybe are from other countries, but they live in the UK or Europe or the US or Canada or Latin America. So that's kind of in the afternoon. So it doesn't really pose too many challenges. I just need to make sure that I have a block of time and that I manage that time well and that I have consistency. Because if I have consistency, I know which times I can offer to new students.
Wow, you're like domino effect or a global passport. You have a digital global passport more or less at your hands. And so that's wonderful. You're able to connect with various students internationally throughout your teaching career, not just one. And so that's really fulfilling that you're able to relate and bring a lot of value to your students in that way. And also, could you tell me more about your podcasts? Dang.
Sure, yeah. So it started about a year ago. I'd always wanted to do it. It'd been on my list for a long time, and it's just one of those things that you never get around to doing. And at that time, I was a little bit more free than I usually would be because I was stuck at home, like most of us. So initially, I worked with someone who also had a similar interest. So they helped me to get that off the ground, and we kind of developed the concept and the idea because within the conversations I have and the time that I spend online, I talk to many, many ESL teachers, many English teachers, and a lot of them were moving online. And they were asking me, how do I teach online? What website should I use? Is there a platform? How do I make a profile? How do I make a video? So a lot of people were coming to me with those questions. So I thought, why not just put it out there for everyone to benefit from? So I started the podcast ESL Talk last January, so just over a year. And we're in our third season now. We're just finishing up season 3. We had a really amazing guest in our most recent episode. Her name was Samantha Todd. You might know her. But
Hi, guys.
just yeah. But it's really nice because my co-host Faye as well. She started teaching online last year as well, and within a short time, she was a success because she managed to now, build her business. She's really active on social media. She has about 30,000 followers now, just through kind of online teaching and working through social media. And we cover a lot of different topics. We focus on lots of different issues and problems that teachers might face, and we kind of share our experiences, and we try to get guests who have different experiences as well, so that we can kind of serve the community, help build community, and make sure that teachers have something to listen to help them be better teachers and help them to get familiar and get comfortable with teaching ESL online.
Wow, that is so rewarding and very awesome that you're able to create this beautiful podcast and also have various experience about teachers and helping teachers to transition into and help other people learn about the podcast so that they know about this rewarding profession of being an English teacher. And I'm so happy to have been a part of your team, a part of the podcast, and share that experience with you, Daniel. And do you employ any warm-ups or introduction in your classes? If you do, would you like to share some of that with our audience?
Hmm. Generally, what I will do, again, because my students are mostly adults and they're pretty focused and pretty motivated, so I don't really have to get them to buy into the class. But what I'll generally do at the beginning, which is just a nice way to break the ice, is we have a focus for that topic. So, for example, I was teaching a group class today, and we were talking about small talk. So I had a picture of two people talking by a vending machine, a coffee machine, and instantly they can visualize that, and they see this phrase small talk and they're like, small talk, but they can see, oh, I've been in that situation. So for English learners, a lot of the time the language is based around context or situations. I recognize this situation, so I know certain words or phrases or dialogues that I can have in that situation. So I generally will use those prompts as a starting point, and we'll use that as a jumping off point to develop and to continue the lesson. So this is the image. You've been here, right? You've been with a colleague, a coworker, chatting by the vending machine, the coffee machine, making small talk, and what are some examples? And then we'll just get right into it. The weather, what we did last weekend, what we ate for lunch, etc. Okay, great. So that's a starting point. So we can get right into it without a cold kind of, today we're going to learn about small talk. What is small talk? Have a visual stimuli, you have a kind of some words, some ideas, and then you can get into it. It's a much smoother transition. So that's generally what I will do. Of course, homework check. I don't really call it a homework check. I just call it a last lesson review. So we might look at a task or an activity that we did, and I'll just quickly ask them to summarize it or paraphrase it or tell me what they learned, so that maybe we're connecting the previous learning to the next learning if it's connected. And then again, that just gets them in the mindset of, okay, this is what I did before, this is how it's going to help me today. And then we kind of put that into the big picture. So those are a couple of things that I try that work quite well for me.
Wow, yeah, those look really great activities and warm-ups to incorporate in your classroom to engage more or less a relatability, and also to engage their various senses, visual and also, just identifying various scenarios within that activity to bring up, better communication. And also, could you tell us more about your teacher entrepreneurship challenge? Could you share more about your experience in that, Daniel?
Yeah. Again, I don't know if it was similar in your case, but for me, it was just something that I've been wanting to do. I was kind of always one foot in, one foot out. And is this
Mhm.
really going to work? Is this really sustainable? And I think I knew deep down that it was, but it was just going to take a lot of time and effort and a lot of hardship, a lot of long days. So I decided to start in December with there was a 7-day social media challenge. And again, best will in the world. I hate taking photos. I hate making videos. It's not something I enjoy, which might sound strange, but it's true. So I really pushed myself to do it, and I realized, okay, I can do this. Then we started on the 21-day teacher challenge, and a lot of it was kind of basic stuff that I kind of knew about, but it was just nice to refresh and learn a little bit more and make sure I was comfortable with that. And it went well. I started following the steps, and I got a few clients, and
Oh,
was able
nice.
to get full-time students. And I set myself a goal for the month of January to get 10 new students, and so far I got 11, which is good. And we still got another week of January left. So again, that was the first step that I wanted to do, and I knew I could do it. And it involved kind of reconnecting with students, my previous students, or reaching out to new people, and kind of trying to make the most of any leads or any opportunities that came my way.
Mhm.
So it's been a good journey so far, but the real goal, I think, for me is to transition into group classes. I have one group so far, so if I can continue that, that's the goal. Because it's great teaching a lot of students. Like 10 students sounds like a lot of work, and it is. But if I ever want to build it beyond a certain point, then it's going to have to be groups, because if I have 5 groups, that's half the time and half the planning than 10 students in theory. So that's where I want to be. But the journey itself was great. And what I loved the most is that I met so many wonderful people, managed to network and connect with a lot of people, and have some really good conversations. It's a really supportive environment. Everyone helps each other and encourages each other, and everyone's on their own path. And it can be very, well, I guess on both sides, it can be very encouraging sometimes to know that I'm not the only person going through this, but it can also be a little bit frustrating where I'm like, why is this person getting this and I'm not? What's the difference? But we shouldn't compare, because we're not, our niches are not the same. Our audience is not the same. Our students are not in the same place. So it's kind of an unfair comparison. But I found it really useful, and there's still so much stuff I have to do, and so many lessons and videos I need to watch, and it's just finding the time to get it all in there. But I have the basics and the foundations now, so I feel like I'm on a good path, and hopefully setting myself up for success this year.
Wow, congratulations, Daniel. I'm so happy that you were able to achieve and get that many that many customer clients
Mhm.
to, I'm sorry, that many students to your to join your classroom, and also you're able to impact much more students. And I'm happy for your goals that you'll um re be receiving these group classes. And just curious, what is your avatar student? Who is your niche student that you are teaching at the moment?
Well, if I look at the students I have, none of them really match that, but well, some of them do. I'd say it's like 50-50 right now. But the students that I tend to work with are international students. So students who move to the US or the UK or Canada to study a undergrad or a bachelor's, a master's or a PhD. So
Wow.
generally those students are moving to a new country, and perhaps they're not fully aware of how to write essays, how to write assignments, how to do research, how to present information and presentations. So I really have set myself to work with those students at the university level to help them write good essays, make good research or create good research, make sure their essays are well organized, clear, and include zero plagiarism, which is a huge issue for students. And then that they have confidence and that they're able to present information clearly and, speak in presentations, because the majority of work at university involves essays, assignments, research, and presentations. So program set up to help them succeed in that, because for an international student, a 2.0 and a 3.0 or a 3.0 and a 4.0 are huge. They have really big implications. A lot of students maybe want to settle down in that country permanently, or do further study, or get a good job, or get into a graduate program, or do a PhD. So that's kind of what I want to try to help them to achieve.
Wow, that is wonderful. You're able to help meet them at their needs, especially with those students. It's a very complex transition from moving from
Mhm.
one country to other, and you're able to ease them into that and provide the best resources, which are lessons and guidance, and helping them excel in their academic and professional careers. So that's wonderful. You're able to connect with your students in that fashion. And what cultural norms, Daniel, did you learn while teaching your students in your classroom?
Oh, where should I begin? A lot.
I know you have so many
Yeah.
international.
So when I started back in 2011, when I lived in South Korea, I learned a lot about kind of a lot of different norms there. So it was kind of strange for me in terms of my students, like when they come into the classroom, they all stand up behind the desk, they'll bow and say good morning, which was kind of strange to me. Again, the system of education in Korea is very much about competitiveness and being the best and having the study culture. So a lot of my students sometimes would be like, by the end of the day, they'd be falling asleep or they'd be sleepy. And I'm thinking, my class is that boring? But the average life of a Korean student is kind of get up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. and study all the way through till midnight or 1 a.m., repeat it every day. So it was really tough for me to adjust to that and see that. And then, of course, there was still, even though it was technically not allowed, there was still a climate of corporal punishment. So if you messed up in school, you might get a slap around the face or a whack or something. That never happened in my class, and I was never witness to it, but I just know that it was something that did happen, which was a little bit strange. And then it was very much about a collective culture. So in an Asian society like Korea, it was very much about a collective culture. So it's everything's like we and our, and we do everything together. Whereas, in the US or the UK or Canada, it's more of an individualist culture. So that took some adjusting as well. And then there were just little things like when I was in the UK as well, most of my students that I taught, they were from many, many different countries. So I had to try to factor in all those different languages and cultures and religions as well, because I might have, 5 students who are Muslim, 5 students who are Hindu, 10 students who are Christian, 5 students who are atheists. And how do I deal with that if I'm talking about social studies or religion or those kind of classes? So how do we deal with that? Those were some real cultural shifts that I had to think about. And then in my online classes, my one-to-one classes, again, some students, for example, female students from some Middle Eastern countries, I'd never seen them, and that's fine, because I respect that that's that's their faith and that's their belief. But again, it's just very difficult. Takes a little bit of adjustment when I can't kind of see someone's reactions, or I can't see if they're following or not. So that's a little bit of a difficulty that I found. And then also just certain students from certain countries, there's certain topics that are a little bit sensitive that I can't really discuss. So sometimes I have to change my lessons, or maybe just adapt them slightly so that they're more suitable as well. But those are just a few that spring to mind. But there are quite a few more.
There are a few more. Goodness, wow,
Yes.
that's amazing that you're able to recall and remember, and also be able to adapt and adjust your teaching with the
A lot
comfortability
of
of
the time it's on the fly as well. So
wow.
yeah, it takes
That's
time, but you
amazing.
can do it.
Yeah, definitely. What was one of the most interesting one from out of that list that was really like a surprise or a shock to you?
I think sometimes students like to not accurately represent their level. So there's been times where I had an adult class of 8 or 9 students, adults, and they're all professionals, business people. And I was told, oh, they all work for international companies. They use English every day. They have, they make phone calls and send emails in English. So I thought, great, I can kind of get it in at a good level, maybe a B1, maybe B2 level. But then I found that when it actually came to the class, they didn't want to speak in English. They felt that kind of, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want my colleagues to laugh at me. I'm embarrassed. I'm shy. So we just brought it right back. And I had to really use all of my kind of skills and experience at that time to try to think, okay, how am I going to get these guys to talk with each other? So instead of the big class environment, we broke it down into pairs. And then we got the pairs into threes, and then the threes into fours. And we put them in different corners of the room so they could work on things together and discuss. So that worked. But again, I had to just really simplify the activities. Any more than 3 steps for the instructions was lost. Or you get the bobblehead syndrome, where
The nodding, like, yeah, yeah.
and then I say, please begin, and no one knows what to do. So that was really tricky. But again, in the culture that they were in, it's rude or it's disrespectful to kind of say to someone, oh, this is not correct, or you're wrong, or I don't agree. So again, when we're doing discussion things, it's tricky. And if their supervisor or boss is telling them, you're going to do an English class and you have to do it, then again, their motivation might be a little bit different to mine. So that was one specific idea that came to mind. But I found, even though they were adults, they really loved like storybooks and picture books and simple things for kids, because that helped them speak confidently, and they could manage that and they could visualize. So they had another stimuli to help them within that as well. But that was a really interesting experience. And by the end, it was probably one of my most fun classes that I've taught. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's really wonderful. You're able to adjust with your students and their level and also be able to provide resources and also open them up in different ways where
Mhm.
they wouldn't have. So that's wonderful. And what have you faced any challenges while teaching, and what did you learn from any of them?
So many challenges.
Just one.
Yeah, I'll never forget when I first moved to Korea. Like I was teaching in like a public school, and again, it was like 35 students in a class. And I stayed up till like 2 a.m. making this amazing like PowerPoint with all the bells and whistles and like all the great videos and everything. I thought it's going to be amazing. They're going to do this. I thought it'd be like, the Sound of Music or something, just kind of,
Yeah.
but
Just flow beautifully.
yeah, but I walked in there and the students couldn't understand anything I was saying. My co-teacher, who was supposed to be an English speaker, couldn't understand anything I was saying. The computer didn't work properly, so my PowerPoint wouldn't load.
Oh my God.
And I was jet lagged because I'd been in the country like a week and I was still adjusting to the time. And it was the middle of August, so it was like 40 degrees outside. Well, I don't know what that, I guess in Fahrenheit, it's like 100,
Yeah, it's like,
100
yeah,
plus.
yeah.
So I was just totally like, what do I do? But that was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because I couldn't get any lower. I couldn't be in any worse of a situation. And through time, through practice, through repetition, through building the tools and getting the resources, I managed to get to a point. Maybe I wasn't good or even, okay, but I got to a stage at least where I could plan a lesson, the students could get something out of it, they were generally enjoying it, and then that kind of helped me progress and get confidence and go from that role and then move to another school and do a master's degree and then do a teaching certification and then do another master's degree and so on. So it was a really, really tough situation, but like I said, that really helped me to kind of be resilient, be adaptable, and never feel now like I don't feel like stressed or frazzled or like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I just kind of kind of try to go with it. And it definitely helped me. It definitely was a character building experience that I'll never forget as a challenge. So I guess my message would be learn through failure. Not every lesson is going to be a winner. Probably if you're just starting, a lot of them are going to be stinkers, and that's fine. That's okay. That's no problem. Students are very forgiving. They generally don't have as long a memory as you do. And if something's embarrassing for you, they're probably not going to remember or even care 1 month or 2 months later. And the last thing, try things out and don't be scared to try new things, because you might stumble upon something that works really well for your students or that you love and students love. So don't be scared to kind of just play it safe. Try to branch out and try new things. If it doesn't work, fine, it doesn't work, but you haven't lost anything. But if it does work, great. You've got more tools for your toolbox. You've got more skills, more adaptability, and more options in the future.
Wow. Yeah, that was a very, like for some people, they would definitely freeze up, but for you, you actually stepped up to the plate and did your best in that. So I commend you for that. And also it's a great learning experience because for any other class, you're able to know the how to resolve those shortcomings. And
Mhm.
so that actually was a good, I'm happy that you saw that opportunity as a good thing and not a bad thing. And so awesome. And have do you what in your classes do you have a favorite lesson that you like to teach?
Um, I mean, I teach different things to different students. So if we're talking about my main program, which I'm focusing on now, the academic writing program that I focus on, um, I do really enjoy that because that's something that I built myself. It's kind of my baby. So I put all the time and effort and years of knowledge and experience into that. So I really enjoy teaching that. The reason why I like it is because what I've done is I've taken something that's very complicated and difficult and stressful for students, and I've broken it down into step by step kind of instructions or stages, so that, you know, instead of running a marathon by yourself, you're running 5 or 6 short races and you have someone next to you, and you can have water breaks and bathroom breaks and your legs never get tired. So I really like teaching that the most because students at that level, you know, master's degrees, PhDs, like they're super, super intimidating. And doing research in a language that isn't your own, it's really difficult. But if I can be there for that student and say to them, you know, I understand what you're trying to say. Let's make it more concise. Let's make it more clear. Let's structure it a little bit better. Let's add in this research, and just reducing their anxiety, reducing their stress, helping them feel more confident and helping them get results. Like that's amazing. So I really enjoy that. But honestly, I think the real answer is that I enjoy all my classes. If I didn't enjoy them, I wouldn't teach them. And we might have those students that we come across where we're just like, oh, this person is a nightmare. I can't teach them anymore. That might happen. And if they're not a good fit, then have an honest conversation. I mean, don't say, I don't like teaching you, but maybe just, you know, it's unfortunately I don't have any time, or we're not a good fit, or there's been changes in my schedule or my teaching. So that's fine. But I really enjoy all the classes, but I think probably the most is the program that I'm focused on now because I built it and that's what I'm really focusing my energy on.
Wow, yeah, that's tremendous to know that you have your if you created your own favorite lesson compiled into many various lessons to a program where you are able to impact so many learners, students, and you're able to share that gift and impact them in that way. And so that is really great that you're able to, you don't have any challenge with your lessons, or you don't have a particular favorite lesson because everything is compiled to one and you're able to condense their problems, and that particular particular favorite lesson is actually helpful for your students because they are able to become they're able to do better in their courses due to your lesson. And so that is great to know. And is it necessary to have a side hustle or an additional source of income while teaching English?
Yes, without a doubt. Now, maybe not a side hustle, but to have different sources of income is really key. Probably on a daily basis, I come across posts or I come across teachers who say, I'm teaching on this platform and my contract is not getting renewed, or I'm on this platform, I'm not getting any new students, or "Oh, I'm on this platform, but I had to reduce my prices." So I think a big mistake or a big problem that a lot of teachers face is that they put all their eggs in one basket. So because of that, you're at the mercy of that one place. So if it's, I know, for example, a lot of a lot of teachers who are teaching the Chinese companies, like they're pretty much all gone or they're going to be gone soon. So again, what do they do? Where do they go? So some of them, yep, they try to branch out on their own, but it's really scary. So again, over the last 10 years, I've realized that it's very difficult to just rely on one source of income. So you should definitely try to have 4 or 5 small pieces of income or small sources of income, because if those 1 or 2 start to disappear, then you can focus more time and energy on the other 3 and you can keep building them. So what does that look like? You're probably asking, like, well, what do you mean 4 or 5? So for an example, maybe I teach on one platform, which brings in, so I don't know, certain amount of money every month, let's say, for example, $1,000. And then I'm doing my own teacher entrepreneur business on my own. Maybe that brings in $1,000 a month. Okay, perfect. I'm also creating and building and selling my resources online to a website. Maybe that brings in $500 a month. Wonderful. I'm also doing a podcast where I can sell advertising and have sponsors, and maybe that just brings in $200, $300 a month. That's fine. Maybe I'm doing language assessment where I, do proofreading or editing or translation, something like that. Or I spend 1 day a week doing IELTS examining or Cambridge examining, and that brings in another. So you have all those sources. So if one of them is to say bye-bye, I'm not thinking to myself, oh my God, how am I going to pay my rent this month? I'm thinking, that really sucks. However, I can maybe just try to get a few more clients on this source, or I can try to get some more students here, or I can maybe do some more hours here, or I can build another course that I'm going to sell and try to get more resources up. So having that mindset is difficult and it takes time. But in terms of enjoyment and loving what you do, I would much rather have 5 days in a week, Monday to Friday, where I'm doing 5 different things. I don't just want to be doing the same thing all day, every day, because that's going to burn me out. That's going to get me, tired, exhausted, stressed out. But if I'm teaching this job on Monday and this job on Tuesday and this job on Wednesday and this job on Thursday and this job on Friday, great. It's variety, it's building networks, it's impacting more students, it's having more sources of income that I can lean on if one of them doesn't work out. And then that way you're becoming an entrepreneur, like we talked about before, Sam.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that is definitely a lot of strategy and planning, and also just being prepared, right? You have to have these various incomes so that you can be able to not um, get yourself short thin when you do have these various commitments knocking on your door. And so that's really smart of you, how you're able to, it was interesting when you said that when you get bored when you do the same thing over and over again, but you get more energized and stimulus when you do various projects and jobs that give you income in different days. And so that's how you can, get more income, which is, or develop your financial capacity with, having various ABC financial commitments, so that you'll be able to, get help you cover your bills and things like that. So thank you so much for sharing that piece of advice, Daniel. And have you ever taught privately, or has it only been through the current online or offline platforms?
Did you say have you ever taught privately?
Yes, have you ever taught
Sorry.
private? Yeah.
Um, privately. What could you expand what you mean by privately?
Yes.
Sorry, it's
Yes.
cutting out a little bit.
No problem. Yeah. So private meaning, have you ever had any classes which was only one-on-one, or has it only been just with group settings, like, as working within a company, you're teaching group classes, something like that?
So I would say that, yeah, I've always probably had private students ever since I've taught, because again, throughout your job, you connect, you network, you talk to people, they talk to their friends, they say, oh, my son, my daughter needs help with this, or I need help with this, or I need to practice this. So I've always had a mix all the time. I've always had a little bit of both. Sometimes it's been more of my kind of teaching job, sometimes it's been more private. Now it's pretty much exclusively private with one or two groups sprinkled in there. But generally, most of my time is spent with students, private students, and a couple of groups within there. So yeah, it's probably 80% private and then 20% with the rest.
Okay, yeah, wonderful. You really have that extensive connection and you able to, connect with your students on that one-on-one and provide that particular lesson as a better way to provide better value to your students.
Mm.
And it's commonly thought that you can teach English remotely online. Sorry, ugh. It's commonly thought you can, oh, okay, sorry, just so little. Okay, let me do it again. It's commonly thought that one can teach English remotely online from anywhere in the world, thus allowing for a nomadic lifestyle. Has this been your experience, Daniel?
Um, I guess it has and it hasn't. What do I mean by that? Well, throughout my teaching career, I've always had a job, like a permanent job in that place. So, yeah, I've been teaching online in the UK, but I was teaching at a school as well. Canada, I was teaching at a university, then another university while teaching online. So they've always coexisted alongside one another. I do think it's possible. I think it's getting more and more difficult now. 4 or 5 years ago, I think it was really easy to do. You could make good money. The cost of living was pretty low. I know a lot of people who were moving to places like Thailand or Eastern Europe or Indonesia, those kind of places, because it was cheap and you could live a really good life and you could just teach 10, 12 hours a week and you had everything covered. So I think that was a good life. So it is definitely possible. However, if you're going to do it now, you're thinking about doing it now, at the very, very least, make sure you have a good CELTA or TEFL certification, because without that, you're not going to really get your foot in the door. And also, non-native teachers and native teachers are both competing for the same students. And a lot of people who are starting out, they just start off on a very general base. So they say, yeah, I can teach English because I'm from the US. Wonderful. So what's going to make you stand out from the next teacher who might also be a native speaker from the US? Price. Well, they charge $10. Okay, well, I'll charge 9. Okay, well, I'll charge 8. And then we start to see that it gets harder and harder because the prices go down and down. Now, if you can say, I am a qualified teacher with A, B, C, D, E, and I can get the results of A, B, C, D for you, then we're moving away from general, we're going specific, we're going niche, we're going very targeted. So if we know who our student is, and we know the problems they have, and we have the skills and qualifications to help them solve those problems, then we can get up to the higher price brackets. It takes time. It takes a lot of years of experience and qualifications, but you can do it. So to go back to your question, yes, it is possible. Yes, you can do it, but you need to be qualified and have some experience.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for those pointers, Daniel. They're definitely needed, especially with these changing times.
Mhm.
And thank you again. And what's one thing you wish you knew when you began your teaching career?
One thing. Wow. You're asking
Yes,
the
of
tough
course.
questions today, Samantha.
I know. My questions are very
I I think I honestly think that I wish I knew how, I think, yeah, I wish I knew how powerful and how big online learning and the internet was going to be for education. Because if I roll the clock back 10 years and I think I was in Korea, I could have started working on my business then. I could have started building up an online presence, utilizing social media, creating good content, videos, sources. I could have been an expert. I could have been a pioneer in that field. Um, or even just I could have taught online. I could have made a lot of extra money to help me. And it didn't need to, because at that point in my life, I was young. I wanted to travel. I wanted to explore. I wanted to work as little as possible. So it was a different focus. But I think, yeah, it would have been good to get a head start on kind of working online and teaching online. I think that would have been good. Um, and also, I wish I knew how can I say this in a respectful way.
Mhm.
I wish I knew how little students care. And what I mean by that is, if I make a mistake, they're not going to care. If I teach a lesson that's not great, I'm going to feel bad, not them. So to not kind of expect perfection and to get results, because it doesn't happen that way. So always be realistic and, go with the flow, and don't expect that you're going to be perfect and that every class is going to be perfect and every experience is going to be the best, because it's not. You just have to keep working at it. So it's a process. It takes time to be a good teacher. And what I found is that now, after all this time, the reason why I can connect so well with students is because I have literally been in their shoes. I have moved to a foreign country. I have tried to learn the language, learn the culture. I went to school there. So I can connect with those students. I've worked with students from all these countries now. So if I get a student from Sierra Leone, or if I get a student from Eritrea, or if I get a student from Cambodia, I have something to talk about with them. I can connect with them. So the more students I teach, the more I can connect with more students, if that makes sense. It's kind of like a cycle. So again, yeah, don't expect perfection, be adaptable, and always learn from your students. I wish I could have learned much more from my students. That's probably the main thing that I'd say, because the more you learn from them, the more you grow, the better a teacher you can be as well.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, Daniel. That is really enlightening, how you're able to know that as a teacher, you're going to make mistakes and that's okay. And also, being a teacher, you're going to make mistakes, and the students, that's good that you shouldn't care. I mean, you care, but not where it's sorry, my brain. Okay, so let me talk about something else with this, what you said. um okay, my brain's like, oh, what to say. Okay, I'm trying to think, because you said a whole lot of things and I'm trying to
I'm
process
sorry.
it. Okay, but yeah, thank you. That those were really great pointers about, you actually walk into their shoes and you know how they feel, and so you're able to relate with them and connect with them, and that's why you're able to, create these amazing courses. With that being said, right, you said that how you wish that you had knew what you knew now, but
Yeah.
being that you're able to, you was in accumulation mode with knowing this information, and so the experience that you have received actually helped with you connecting with your students now, and
Right.
so that's wonderful. You're able to be in a better position and help your students where they are. And then, Daniel, where can people connect with you over?
Okay.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn is probably the best place to connect with me. So you can just search my name, Daniel Shaw, and you'll see all the monikers and subtitles afterwards. But that's where you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram. My handle is I'm Daniel Teacher. So I am, as in I'm Daniel Teacher. That's my Instagram. And those are probably the two best places to get me. So if you want to reach out and connect, and if you want to learn more or you want to discuss more, I'm always happy to share experiences and talk about your teaching journey as well. So yeah, that's where you can find me. Thank you.
Okay. And then, oh, sorry, you closed it. Oh, no. And then also, what are your goals for 2022?
My goals for 2022. I set myself a really ambitious goal to work with 100 students this year. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but if we continue on this trajectory that we're on, then it is possible. So I want to try to work with 100 students this year. We'll see about that. And hopefully, if I can get to that point, I want to just make sure that I am having programs that are really well built. So my programs are kind of finished and I have my proof of concept and that they work, and that my online presence is all set up and everything's moving swiftly. And I'm not the kind of person who kind of defines success by money, because life is about so much more than money. So my goals, yeah, just to kind of have control of my time, have control of my schedule, and try to impact as many students as possible. Hopefully 100. So we'll see if it's going to happen.
I know it's going to happen, and most definitely with you being such a high achiever, I know you'll definitely get the 100 students and also create and cultivate the program fit for them. And you'll be impacting so many lives and helping many, many students. And so this was a great, great pleasure, Daniel, having you on the podcast. It was fun. It was really fun getting on your podcast and joining you and speaking about my experience as a teacher and entrepreneur. And it was also very fun communicating with you and conversing with you about yours. And so this was excellent. And you have, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thanks, Samantha.
Okay.